Acting President Yemi said in Abuja that Nigeria will no longer be a dumping ground. The Ministry of Petroleum Resources have revealed that Nigeria's average oil production, including condensates, increased to 2.06 million barrels per day as the country continued to ramp up production. Military statement came out after President Trump threatened North Korea with fire and fury that North Korea is considering carrying out missile strike on U.S. Athletics governing body has defended the decision to deny a World Athletics Championship medal favorite entry to London Stadium. Good day and welcome to African Broadcasting Network News. I am Ogali Mafuru. Now the news in details. The acting president Yemi Osinbajo said in Abuja at the 26th Engineering Assembly organized by the Council for Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria that the country will no longer be a dumping ground for all manner of foreign products. Acting President Osinbajo, who was represented at the event by the Minister of Science and Technology, Ogbonnaya Onu, said the present administration was determined to change the trend by empowering local capacities through policies and programs that could promote economic diversification, and also to work hard to place engineering at the center of national development. Osinbajo said with what was in place in the next 10 to 15 years, Nigeria will be looking for scientists, engineers, and many other professionals, even from outside the country because of industrial revolution. According to the acting president, many decisions have been taken, particularly in the science, technology, and innovation roadmap, covering a 13-year period, will help the nation plan ahead to meet the short, medium, and long-term needs of many sectors, including engineering. The Nasarawa State Governor Tanko Al-Mukara, who chaired the occasion, advised that the stringent regulatory framework and more attractive conditions of service be revolved to forestall capital flight and persistent emigration of indigenous engineers to other nations in search of greener pastures. The Executive Secretary, Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, Simbi Wambote, also condemned the way all manner of foreigners came into Nigeria and dabbled into engineering practice. Nigerian Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) is seeking more powers to play more decisive roles in the selection of candidates for the general election. The electoral body, in opposition papers submitted to the Chief Justice of Nigeria (CJN), also criticized the judiciary for aiding electoral impunity through the conflicting judgments of the courts that enabled politicians to manipulate the electoral system following the multiple lawsuits rising from the failure of political parties to abide by their internal guidelines on primaries. In the paper, INEC criticized the judiciary for encouraging electoral impunity through the failure of the lower courts to abide by principles laid down by the Supreme Court, adding that conflicting judgments of courts were helping politicians to act with impunity and subvert the electoral process as the anomalous situation was making its work difficult. The electoral umpire had earlier submitted the position paper to the then CJN, Justice Mahmood Mohammed, before he retired. Then CJN had directed INEC to compile and submit to its office all conflicting judgments, a directive INEC duly complied with, as the commission stated that apart from their refusal to apply the authorities already established by the Supreme Court. In the main, INEC had set up a committee on conflicting judgments to, among others, review, analyze, and create a data of delayed and conflicting judgments rising since the 2015 general election. The commission cited many of such conflicting judgments delivered by the Court of Appeal, the Federal High Court, and the various state high courts. The committee, which is headed by INEC National Commissioner and Chairperson Legal Services Clearance and Complaints Committee, Mrs. May Abu Moshe Umbu, will also evaluate the efficacy of resolving and managing election-related conflicts through alternative dispute resolution mechanisms such as mediation and arbitration. And now on business. The Ministry of Petroleum Resources had revealed that Nigeria's average oil production, including condensates, increased to 2.06 million barrels per day last month, from 2.05 million barrels per day in June, as the country continued to ramp up production amidst retention of output concession from the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. Through the increase appeared marginal, it was, however, a huge jump from the 1.6 million barrel per day output a year ago, when production facilities were hit by attacks from Niger Delta militants. Nigeria's oil output has climbed steadily following a respite in activity by the militants demanding control of oil resources derived from their ancestral communities. Natural gas production also rose to 7.81 billion standard cubic feet per day in July, from 6.74 billion standard cubic feet per day in the preceding month. Meanwhile, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Dr. Ibe Kachuku, had linked some of the difficulties in the petroleum sector to lack of planning and policy inconsistencies. He also said that the oil and gas sector is significantly hit by lack of investment, coupled with huge infrastructure gap that required about $50 million to close. According to Kachuku, investors prefer to invest the limited resources elsewhere in African countries because of the laxity in fiscal policies that should have spent out the needed incentives in Nigeria. Gold and silver were trading higher during Wednesday's intraday trade amid rising geopolitical tensions between US and North Korea. Demand from traders investors further supported the precious metal prices on Wednesday. MCS gold was trading up to 0.67% or 191 rands at 28,570 rands per 10 gram, while MCS silver was up 0.81% or 304 rands at 38,800 rands per 1 kg. SPD Gold Trust, the world's largest gold-backed exchange, traded for fell slight 0.0% to 786.87 tons on Wednesday, the lowest since March 2016. Holdings at the largest silver-backed exchange-traded fund, New York and Apple's iShares Civil Trust SLV, stood at 10,530.59 tons, down 32.34 tons from Tuesday's trade. Platinum gained 0.7% to $973.40 per ounce after hitting its highest since April 21st in the previous sections, while palladium fell 0.2% to $895.30 per ounce. And that's on business news. Now let's join the committee for the news from around the world.
Thanks, Ogali. President Jacob Zuma has survived yet another attempt to axe him, beating back a no-confidence vote in South Africa's parliament. Tuesday's vote was instigated by the opposition last spring after Zuma fired a suspected finance minister, Pravin Gordhan, causing a plunge in the currency and a downgrade of the country's credit rating to junk. Gordhan had argued for sensible fiscal policies and against the rampant cronyism in state-owned cabinets. Under Zuma's leadership, you can't do that. South Africa slipped into recession in first quarter of this year. Unemployment is at a 14-year high of nearly 28%. Business confidence has fallen, the economy is losing competitiveness, and foreign investors are looking elsewhere. Zuma's response has been to deepen its commitment to divisive and dishonest policies that call for radical economic transformation and blame white monopoly capital for South Africa's ills. Although voters have begun to see through it all, last August they punished the ANC by giving the opposition control to the three of South Africa's biggest urban centers, including Johannesburg and Pretoria. The ANC's continued support for a leader who lacks the public trust, Zuma, poll rating have hit all-time lows, seems likely to fuel their anger. The Jubilee candidate Uhuru Kenyatta is leading in the presidential race with 7,546,226 votes of the votes counted so far. According to the latest figures released by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission (IEBC), Raila Odinga of the National Super Alliance is in second position with 6,164,403 votes. Joseph Nyanga is in third position with 34,225 votes, followed by Mohamed Abdubal Dida with 30,302 votes. Ekuru Aukot of the Third Alliance has gathered 24,366 votes. Japhet Kavinga Kaluyu has 10,475 votes, followed by Creoles Jirongo with 9,918 votes. Then Michael Warura, an independent candidate who has gathered 8,037 votes. Meanwhile, Bomet Governor Isaac Ruto is among the big politicians set to lose their seats after trailing National Assembly Deputy Speaker Joyce Labuzol of Jubilee. Ruto is running on a Chamal Chan Chianani party ticket so far as 2,574 votes against Labuzol's 170,530 votes. Another seasoned politician facing defeat is NAC Kenya leader Martha Karwal, who is currently trailing former Devolution Cabinet Secretary Anne Wariguru in the battle for the Kiria Yaga gubernatorial seat. While Guru is currently leading with 134,734 votes against Karwal's 102,082 votes. We'll go on a short break. What news when we return? Do stay with us. Welcome back. And for news around the world, a report quoting an earlier military statement came out after President Donald Trump threatened North Korea with fire and fury that North Korea is considering carrying out missile strikes on the U.S. Pacific territory of Guam. The North's official says it was considering a plan to fire medium to long-range rockets at Guam, where U.S. strategic bombers are based, which has now marked a sharp rise in rhetoric between the two countries. The UN recently approved further economic sanctions on North Korea, which Pyongyang says were a violent violation of their sovereignty, warning that the U.S. would pay a price. On Wednesday, North Korea was carefully examining the operational plan for making an enveloping fire at the areas around Guam using its domestically made medium to long-range Hwasong 12 miles. Meanwhile, North Korea news agency reported a military statement issued on Tuesday, which probably came in response to U.S. military drills in Guam. The governor of Guam, Edil Bazal Kavol, says there was currently no threat to the island and the Marianas archipelago, but the Guam was prepared for any eventuality, as North Korea's statement is the latest stage in the eating up of rhetoric and tension. Pyongyang, which has tested nuclear device 5 times, launched 2 intercontinental ballistic missiles in July, claiming it now had the ability to hit the mainland U.S. 6 French soldiers have been injured after a car slammed into them in Paris before speeding away in what the suburb's mayor called a deliberate act. The Paris police authority says 2 of the soldiers have been seriously wounded while the others sustained light injuries. The attack comes 4 days after a teenager with psychiatric problems tried to attack a security force guarding the Eiffel Tower. The mayor of the Levallois-Perret commune, Patrick Balkany, says a BMW parked in an alley drove into the soldiers as they left their barracks to go on patrol duty. Mr. Bakani says the attack was a deliberate act without any doubt, as he went on to denounce the intolerable attack on the military. A major police operation has been launched in search of the BMW and its driver. Although France remains in a state of emergency following a string of terror attacks in which Islamist militants or Islamist-inspired attackers have killed more than 230 people over the past 2 years. Operation Sentinel has seen soldiers regularly patrol the streets since the Charlie Hebdo massacre. And that is it on our world news for today. Let's join Anna for some sport news.
Thanks, Okemote, and on sport news. Arsenal Wenger has ruled Alexis Sanchez out of Arsenal Premier League opening game against Leicester City on Friday. The Chile international Sanchez, who has been linked with a summer exit, is set to miss the encounter with Foxes due to an abdominal injury. Wenger, who confirmed that Alexis will not feature due to a slight injury picked up in training, said that Alexis had a little abdominal strain, which he caught on Sunday morning in training. This discovery was shown after scan leading to Chile International being ruled out of the opening game against the Foxes. Wenger says the club is yet to receive a formal bid for the Chilean striker despite the player has been linked with a move away from the Gunners this summer. And still on sport, athletics governing body has defended its decision to deny a World Athletics Championship medal favorite entry into London Stadium and made an attempt to control a very virulent norovirus outbreak. The IAAF said it was under instruction to quarantine athletes who showed the symptoms of the virus. Botswana Isaac Makwela, 30, had hoped to run in Tuesday 400 meters final, but was banned from competing. Nevertheless, his country Olympic boss, Falcon Sedimo, said that was disturbing. It acknowledged Makwela's absence was a sad case, but said its medical staff examined the athlete and notes taken by a doctor showed he had been vomiting over an 18-hour period. In a later statement, the governing body said that the team doctor, team leader and team physio had been informed following the medical examination that the athlete should be quarantined for 48 hours and would therefore be missing the 400-meter final on Tuesday. Makwela had been considered the main threat to Olympic champion and world record holder Wade van Niekerk, who retained the world title by winning Tuesday race. The Botswana hurler said he would be devastated to miss out as he was fit to race, having already been withdrawn from Monday's 200 meters heats. But when he attempted to pass through the athlete's entrance to stadium, an official and security personnel prevented him doing so. A former professional boxer, Ray Anton Oleta, has been convicted of attempted rape by the Victorian County Court and intentionally causing injury to the girl. The Philippine-born fighter, who fought 51 games and saw his last fight take place in 2014, ended his career with a record of 18-24-9-4 KO. The ex-fighter pleaded guilty to the attempted rape and intentionally causing injury over the August 2016 attack on a 23-year-old woman, stating that he bashed and tried to rape a young Japanese tourist in the stairwell of a Melbourne block of flats before shaving his head for disguise and going to church to pray for forgiveness. The prosecutor, Ray Gibson, further stating that Oleta grabbed the young woman from behind and she waited for a lift before dragging her by the ankle to an oak club and punching her in the face and stomach repeatedly, smashing her head against a concrete wall and forcing himself on her as she screamed for help. That's it on our sports bulletin. Let's join Ogali for the top story.
And for that sport news, and that sport news wraps it up on our today's bulletin. But before we go, a quick recap of the top stories that made the headlines. Acting President Yemi Osinbajo said in Abuja that Nigeria will no longer be a dumping ground. The Ministry of Petroleum Resources have revealed that the Nigerians' average oil production, including condensates, increased to 2.06 million barrels per day as the country continued to ramp up production. Military statement came out that President Trump threatened North Korea with fire and fury that North Korea is considering carrying out missile strikes on U.S. Athletic governing body has defended its decision to deny a World Athletic Championship medal favorite entry to London Stadium. Thanks for watching. I am Ogale Mafuru. You can follow us on our social media platform by visiting our website at www.abnchannel.net or follow us on Twitter at ABN Channels. You can kindly like us on our Facebook page at ABN TV or subscribe to our YouTube channel at African Broadcasting Network. Do have a lovely day. I am Ogale Mafuru.